Hey guys, Rominating Reaper here. So it's that time of the week. I'm outside the cinema, and well, this one's been a long time coming. The Accountant 2. Really enjoyed the first film. It was a very entertaining action with a surprisingly grounded representation of autism. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of that. Yeah, apparently leans a lot more into the sort of over the top nature of it all in this one, so I'm definitely really excited. It sounds like it should be a real crowd pleaser, but I guess there's only one way to find out, and that is to get in, get some snacks, and get seated for The Accountant 2. So I've got my popcorn here and a Fanta, ready for the return of Ben Affleck's autistic action hero. So yeah, The Accountant 2, back from seeing it, is once again directed by Gavin O'Connor. It's also produced by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon through their Artist Equity label, which gives everyone on the production a fair wage, which is just, such a commendable mission statement that honestly needs to see more of that in Hollywood. This is coming to us 9 years after the first, and there's a certain level of inbuilt demand for a sequel to The Accountant. I really enjoyed it. I was really looking forward to see it more, especially seeing how they build on the Chris and Braxton dynamic from the end of the film. So I had my fingers crossed that we'd have another cracking good time with our autistic action hero. But was Christian Wolff's return worth the long wait? Let's find out. So in the film, Ray King, the director of the Treasury's Financial Crimes Department, is murdered while investigating a missing persons case. Mary Beth Medina learns of King's death and brings the case to the attention of Christian Wolff in order to get to the bottom of just what Ray was involved with. And so Wolff brings on some help in the case in the form of his estranged brother Braxton. The two brothers begrudgingly putting their past history aside to work together and solve the case, and also potentially repair their own relationship. So, look, it's certainly fairly reasonable to have concerns about, do we really need a sequel to The Accountant? The film wrapped itself up very neatly, especially with the sequel coming nearly a decade after the original. But worry we should not, because they've done it again. It's a more than worthy follow-up to the first film, and I think depending on who you ask, there'll be certainly things to prefer in each film, but this is a really, really strong film in its own right, and in fact, there are certain things about it that I actually kind of prefer about it to the first. I mean, for one, there's the story. The first film story was definitely entertaining, but it was definitely a bit more bloated with the two separate investigations running parallel, and the cuts to flashbacks and stuff. It could definitely get a little bit messy. That is fixed right from the jump on this one, because because the whole central mystery of the film is like pretty much active right from the get-go. It makes things a lot more focused, a lot more tight and engaging to watch. It is a hugely entertaining mystery that definitely goes bigger in scope compared to the first film, but it never loses sight of that more sort of grounded investigation at its core. But I think what really makes this sing is the central dynamic between Chris and Braxton, which is sold wonderfully by the effortless chemistry between Ben Affleck and John Bernthal. Seriously, the two of them are great together, and their whole like sort of odd couple dynamic is just an absolute delight. There it leads to many, many big laughs and also some surprisingly earnest character development for the pair. It is very much the beating heart of the film, and I think this is exactly what audiences are really going to connect to here. It is a real crowd pleasing sort of buddy comedy. It's like, seriously, man, that whole scene at the country western bar is not something I knew I needed, but honestly, I'm delighted I got it. Yeah, it would not work nearly as well if Affleck and Bernthal weren't nearly as committed as they are. Affleck is very much the sort of straight man of the pair. He's got the sort of deadpan deliveries, and again, a lot of the sort of autistic mannerisms. They're played very sensitively in a very grounded way, which I very much appreciate. While obviously Bernthal is the more like goofy and zany one, making quips for Affleck to play off. They are great. Now, unfortunately, the I guess Medina character is a bit of a fun sponge in comparison to just how much fun these two are. Because you're sort of just wondering like, okay, but can we get more of the Chris and Brax stuff? Because that is very much where the fun is to be had here. Although, in saying that, the whole mystery around them is very entertaining. Obviously, it's very gritty and grounded, much like the first, but also it leans into the absurdity of it a lot more. Like seriously, man, you gotta see what the Harvard neuroscience place has become because, man, yeah, it's basically like Professor X's school for gifted youngsters, but for computer hackers. It is a pure comic book treat. And of course, the action is is big. It's exciting. Obviously, the third act in particular is a big highlight. But there's plenty of great fight scenes to be had. Especially a little moment in the bar. Of course, the opening with the return of J.K. Simmons as Ray King. Pretty much there to be killed off and set the plot in motion. But in his little screen time, does a great job as well. There's also some fun action to be found with Daniela Pineda's very mysterious character who maybe has a few more secrets than you might initially expect. I very much enjoyed the gradual reveal of her nature, and again, she has a sort of element of physicality to her that is super entertaining to watch. All of this makes this sort of larger than life spectacle of it all that much more entertaining. And of course, it's shot through very well. Obviously, the action in particular is shot through with like surgical precision by Seamus McGarvey. It's incredibly vibrant and colorful, but also has that grit to it as well. It looks great. It looks very, very cinematic, and I'm glad Amazon gave this a cinema release. And of course, the score by Bryce Dessner really works to sell the tense tone of the whole thing. Is very, very well done. Now, there is one issue that I have here, and that is the actual villains of the piece, because yeah, they are a lot less interesting than everything else around them. They are basically just like faceless goons that are there just to be like killed off. Basically, just cannon fodder for Affleck and Bernthal, which is a bit of a shame because again, the whole film around the whole film is just so interesting, and it of course builds to a final act, which delivers some big, unexpected twists, some great character payoffs for the Christian Brax dynamic, and the big centerpiece action action scene that is just very, very thrilling. It is super exciting and basically like a big screen Call of Duty mission. It is, yeah, a delight, and it ensures that I left this having had a good time. Overall, The Accountant 2 is an incredibly strong follow up to the first film, and one that actually, in some regards, actually does improve on it, mainly by leaning in to the sort of more absurd nature of it all. It is a real treat. I'd highly recommend seeing this thing on the big screen. Out of 10, The Accountant 2 gets an 8. So yeah, let me know down in the comments. Have you seen The Accountant 2? What did you think of it? What did you make of it in comparison to the first? And would you like to see more of Christian Wolff and Braxton in a potential third film, which is apparently in development? Let me know all that down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new. And don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload.